Hey guys, Brianna here, and I am here with probably one of my favorite, at least if not my favorite video to film of the year, and that is all my favorite books of 2018 or of the year. And I have a lot here. You can see there's two piles here, and I'm really excited. I had like a pretty short disappointed list books, which I posted yesterday, so feel free to check that out. There's only like 4 or 5 books on there, which is pretty good out of like 54. But yeah, so let's just get started. I'm first going to very briefly show the rereads I did. So I reread quite a few books this year, which it's so funny. That's another thing in the past, like 2 years ago I said I wouldn't do, like why would I reread books? But I've been doing that this year and last year. And so, something in my eye, of course. But yeah, so let me show you the rereads first. And I have a series I've talked about so many times on here. The Captive Prince trilogy, queer, adult lit, so good. This was first self-published. And we have book 1, which is Captive Prince. We have book 2, which is Prince's Gambit. And we have book 3, which is King's Rising. And this series is so good. Again, I've talked about it so much, but it's set in a fantasy world, and there's rival kingdoms, and the rightful heir is sent to the opposite kingdom by his scheming half-brother, and it just flows from there. And it is so well crafted. And again, rereading it, I was just so impressed by like how there was no unnecessary scenes. Like everything had an importance and a meaning, and it was just so good. So good. If you like fantasy and if you're looking for a good queer adult book, they're so good. Read them. I also reread this year The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. I read this for the podcast my friends and I do about that book, which I will link down below as always. And so we read the short story. And this book is always so hard to summarize, but so I'll just read the first top of the, I'll just read the back. A young woman is making a living faking it as a cut-price psychic. She makes a decent wage, mostly by telling people what they want to hear, and then she meets a woman who believes her house is haunted, and her 15-year-old stepson Miles is like affected, or is just like crazy, and so she basically wants her house cleansed and maybe even an exorcism performed on her son. But it takes such a turn, and I just think this is a really good short story. This is one of the first short stories where I finally admitted that, okay, I can like a short story, that I really enjoyed. And she wrote this actually for George R.R. Martin, I believe, who's a friend of hers. So yeah, she also wrote Gone Girl, Sharp Objects, but I really need her to write more stuff because I really loved all of Gillian Flynn's stuff. My final reread, so I have all the physical books, and I'm gonna need to check the list and make sure I didn't forget anything else. I also reread The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. I don't own that book, but it's very good. And I read it a couple years ago. It's a book that I recommend off the top of my head to people at work. I work in a library, and it's a fiction book that can go across, and I think all genres, and anyone could like. So if you don't know if someone likes a specific genre, I would say recommend that to them. And it's about a woman who works for a publisher, and so she goes to bookstores and sends them their lists of like what they're publishing this year to try and get them to follow the books. And in one, on this island, she comes across this man who's a little bit like jaded kind of, but then he has a brother and a sister-in-law, and so he seems a little, jaded into it, but he has a younger girl too, and there's a little bit of mystery and reveal, and stuff like that. And it's really good. It's fiction, and it's a very good fiction book, and it warms my heart. Another book I reread was Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin, which is one of my favorite books, one of my like life-changing books. Remember when people were doing those videos of like top 10 most influential, that's what it was, influential books. This is one of them. I read this in college for the first time, and it's sci-fi, and it deals with interesting things like gender. So on the planet Winter, there is no gender. They become male or female during each mating cycle, and this is something that humans find incomprehensible. The leader of the known worlds has sent an ethnologist to study these people on the forbidding icebound world. At first, he finds his subject difficult and off-putting with their elaborate social systems and alien minds, but in the course of a long journey across the ice, he reaches a kind of understanding with one of them. It might even be a kind of love, and it's so good. My book club this year read this, and so it was a joy to reread this and to get the reactions from it. So again, Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, and this is probably the first time when I realized, okay, there is really good sci-fi out there that I could enjoy. Which I know sounds kind of silly, like I think you could find anything in any genre maybe that you might like, or any of the big genres, mystery, sci-fi, general fiction, but it's the first time when I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to read more things like this that touch on this. So it was really fantastic. My English class in college was part of a pathway, so everyone chooses like a mini pathway, and mine was gender, sexuality, and the body. So my English class I chose to take in that pathway, and so hence dealing with this, which was really, really good. That was just a phenomenal class overall. So yeah, I would recommend this. Sorry, the lighting is like not that good. I just realized. Is that better? No, it's not really better. Sorry. And then so we've gonna Left Hand Darkness. Okay, and then my last reread of the year was The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, but I read it in German. So Der Junge im gestreiften Pyjama by John Boyne, and this was really awesome because the reading level was perfect for me, and I was really able to read it without any issues, I would say. The bad thing is that it tore me up. This book is so good, but it literally makes me so sad. It makes me want to just sit there and cry for days. So I'm done. I've read this book twice now. I don't plan on rereading it ever again, at least for a very, very, very long time. But it's very good. Oh, the lighting is better. Okay, good. It's so good. I recommend it. And this is a kid's book. So when I first read it, I rented it from my workplace, and I was really shocked after reading it that it was in the kids section of the library, but it makes sense to me. And the author, when asked, like, is it for kids, it's for books, says, I don't really think about that, I just wrote a story. So this is one of those interesting things where I think that you might see this book in different sections of different libraries, if you were to go looking for it. But really, really good. I actually think it would be one that'd be good to read with your kid in middle school, like, and to talk about it and stuff like that. So yeah, so those are all my rereads. Let's go to all the fresh ones I read this year. So I have my little list because I don't want to miss anything. But we have On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. And as you can see, it's a tiny book, and I basically marked up almost every lesson. But it's what it says, it's just lessons that we should take away from the 20th century, specifically about governments and tyranny and stuff like that. So the red ones are all, the red tabs are all like the lessons that I really, really, really thought was important to take away from this. So I'll just read one of the lessons. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Modern tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, remember that authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. The sudden disaster that requires the end of checks and balances, the dissolution of opposition parties, the suspension of freedom of expression, the right to a fair trial, and so on, is the oldest trick in the Hitlerian book. Do not fall for it. Like the Patriot Act. So do not fall for it. Absolutely excellent. I feel like this should be on everyone's shelves, especially right now. I'm like, how do you? Yeah. We have another nonfiction I read, The Lost City of Z by David Graham. This was so good. Also, like, I've talked about this before, but the size of the book and the feel of the cover is just like, and the feel of the paper that it's printed on, so good. The Lost, what was it? Oh, yeah, it was a book with Charlie Hunman or something, which, like, I don't think this guy was supposed to be that hot, but I haven't seen the movie at all, and I'm not going to, but this is so good. So this is about, in 1925, the legendary British explorer Percy Fawcett ventured into the Amazon jungle in search of a fabled civilization that has been rumored and been sought after for years, kind of like El Dorado was. And it tells the story of this, and this was so good because it wasn't just like, oh, so whatever in nonfiction an author is talking about another subject, but they always talk about themselves, but it's not labeled as like a memoir or anything like that. That really irks me. Like, talk about the subject. Like, I'm not wanting to read your life history, but this guy does a really good balance of, he took his own little trip, but it's not on the same scale and not anything like that, and it was much safer and much, you know, he's no explorer though at all, so this was like, he was really going outside his comfort zone. But this is mainly about the guy and the history of the lost city of Z and this fabled place and the time and how exploring and going off exploring was seen as so normal, the time in the Amazons and how gross and awful and horrific it would get, which scared the bejesus out of me. That terrifies me, the whole prospect, all the bugs, starving, getting wounds and not being able to find your way back, or having to go back alone because your whole party is dead. This was just really good, and so I was really I had this for a while, and it was so popular that I was like, I'm gonna wait for it to die down. I don't want to get too excited about it, but it ended up being really good, so this is a good nonfiction. Oh, and then we have Get Well Soon. So I listened to this on audiobook, so I don't have it. We have Get Well Soon, History's Worst Plagues and the Heroes Who Fought Them by Jennifer Wright. Very good, 4 stars. I mean, to be honest, I don't remember that much specifics about it, and I know that this is because I've learned about those plagues a lot. I learned about them in college, and inoculation, vaccines, and stuff like that, and if you read enough of them, like, they all kind of start to blur. But I thought it was a very good, for someone who has no idea about plagues and like histories and stuff like this and diseases, it was a good, like, it divided each chapter by like a disease or an outbreak and everything, and it was a really good outline for giving you information about those kind of things. So if you don't know a lot, or even if you do, because I enjoyed it and I've studied and read about that stuff a lot, so I would definitely recommend it. Another audiobook that I read that was nonfiction was Utopia for Realists: Why Making the World a Better Place Isn't a Fantasy and How We Can Do It by Rutger Bregman. And I do remember off the top of my head, one of the great things it said was that, I know that we talk about all the disasters that happen all the time, and our eyes and our ears are drawn to disasters and drawn to all the horrible things happening in the world, but things are still actively getting better constantly. We just don't talk about those things as much, and we should. So that was like one of the main takeaways from that book, and it was really good as well. Funny here and there, but also serious, but then also hopeful as well. So Utopia for Realists, and also the definition of utopia. Like, utopia doesn't need to be meaning like a place where nothing goes wrong. That's not possible. You're never going to be there. Utopia could be, you know, the act of working towards something better, and things getting better, which they always are, even though there's bad things happening too. One doesn't always necessarily negate the other. But yeah, so those are all the non-fictions I read. Let's see, Tyranny, Lost City. Yes. Now on to the fictions that I physically have with me. So we have Fear by Roald Dahl, and I've talked about this. A lot this year. There's a collection of 7 Penguin editions that they did for Roald Dahl, and each one centers around a theme. This is fear, tales of terror and suspense. There's lust, madness, cruelty, ones like that, and each is a collection of short stories. Some are collections of his own works, but some, like this one, are collections of short stories he handpicked to put in this book. And this, while not being the most amazing thing I've read, I think I, upon reflection though, found something really eerie about them, which makes sense. It's called Fear, and some of these short stories, the more you think about them, they do kind of get to you. Overall though, I think I gave this like a 3.5 stars, but I really, really like the concept, and this unnerved me enough that it is one of my favorite books of the year. So that's pretty funny that I only really think it's worth a 3.5, but I'm excited to read the other ones. And like I said, just the feeling of being unnerved by some of these things was enough to make me think it was quite brilliant. I mean, if you think about something enough, whether you thought it was good or bad or whatever, to me that screams as being impactful and worthy of being on this list. These books I talked about a bunch, and I actually reviewed the first one, so I will link that down below, and that's Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and the second book in the duology, which is Crooked Kingdom. A fantasy book of 6 young adults. It's a heist novel. They have to steal something. But each of them but the world that's created in here is really interesting. The cities, the leader uses a cane, which I know the author is it's really important for her to get disability in her books, as I believe she has one as well. And there's queer characters in here. They're not crazy, no, they are crazy. They're part of the main thing, so they are really important. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. They are important. They are important. This book has one of my favorite young black male characters. Maybe my favorite that I read about. He's so awesome, Jasper. He's my favorite. He's my son. I love him. But this is one of the best written books I've ever read. It's so cleverly constructed. Like every single piece, everything comes together. And certain things that, you know, there is romance, and certain things though that you think might be dumb, or you're like, oh, I know where this is going. You really don't, but you do. Like, you know it's gonna be point A to point B, maybe, hopefully, properly, but like, there's little tidbits along the way that I was like, that's clever. You don't see that. Like, I was just so blown away. So it's a YA book, it's a heist book, it's very serious, it's very dark, and you know, you take him through the story and you're like, oh, well, again, I know how it ends, or not even how it ends, but oh, I bet this is gonna happen. Oh, I bet they're gonna fool them there, or da-da-da. But every time, no, you're like thrown a bit. You're thrown, and I just, so impressed and so brilliant. Again, one of the best written books I have ever read and seen. One of the best written series I've ever read and seen. So there's only these 2 books, there's a duology, but I heard she has a series that follows one of these characters and where they're from or something like that, but I'm not gonna read that. I don't care about that. The older I get, the less I want more on my books. The more I'm like, if it's longer than a trilogy, it should not be written. Or I'm not devoting more than that much time to it. So duology was perfect for me, and this really just got me even more hyped about finding gems in YA literature, because these books were amazing. So yeah, check them out. Again, I'll link my review of the first one, which has more details and spoilers, down below. We have the biggest book I read this year, which was The Crimson Petal and the White by Michael Faber. This is 900 and something pages. I read this about last month or a month and a half ago. So good. It's about a 19-year-old prostitute in Victorian London named Sugar, who, from the brothel of the terrifying Mrs. Castaway, who is her, the person that's like in charge of all the girls, she begins her ascent through society, thanks to one of her new customers that she gets, William Rackham, a perfume magnate whose lust for sugar soon begins to smell like love. This was just such a good fiction story, and I can honestly say that there's not one part of this 900-page book that I feel should have been cut out. I mean, even for smaller books, I'll be like, they should have cut out 100, 150 pages, something. And I just did not feel that way at all with this book. Every page was important. So many characters, even the guy who I would have thought I would have hated automatically, I liked his character. Like, everyone that was written, I wasn't rolling my eyes or sick of hearing about. His brother, who's deeply religious. His wife, who is kind of, there's something wrong with her. I don't know if she's just soft in the head, if she went through some trauma, but she's, oh, I think at one point they talk about how she has like a tumor probably pressing on her brain, but she doesn't know it. But she's really religious and weird and almost, not weird, but almost childlike and scared. But you it's just such an interesting cast of characters, and I kind of felt for all of them, and I really like loved reading from all of their perspectives. It just was such a well constructed ride and journey, and one day maybe I'll watch the TV adaptation of it. But and even Sugar herself, like, she has ichthyosis, which is the fish skin disease, so her skin is really thin and flaky, but she's this really sought after prostitute, and it just, there's so many aspects of this. I don't want to give away any more, and I hardly said anything. But very, very good. I do need to read some more Michael Faber. I have some of his other stuff on my books, but I was very impressed. I was expecting to like have to trudge through some of this, but every time I picked it up, I was really enjoying myself, so yeah. Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Wow, which I just talked about in my December wrap-up, so you can check that out there. So through the story of Charles Ryder, this is one of those, a man becomes friends with someone who belongs to a rich family while he's studying abroad at like Oxford or whatever. I don't remember if that's where they go, but maybe. And he becomes entangled, and it's queer, and obviously he's in love with the friend that but there's a lot of things that go on, and there's huge religious emphasis. The guy's friend family is very religious, and instead of being like in a very blunt, beat down way, it's clear that they're religious, and it affects him and his siblings and the family and now the friend in various ways. It was done in a way that I had never seen before, and I thought was very clever and crafty. And it's one of those books that I said in my wrap-up review that made me so angry when I finished it, but just made me realize later that no, it's actually a really good story. It just made me really sad. And no one likes to be sad. So I would definitely recommend this. I have Vile Bodies by him as well on my shelf. And again, I don't want to give away spoilers in these books in this wrap-up. So I'll just say that the guy, Charles Ryder, the main character, he's in the army now, and he's leading a group of troops that come across Brideshead, which is the name of the estate that his friend in college and everything, and that his family owned, and that he spent a huge amount of his college time in. And so Brideshead Revisited, now he's reflecting on his time there, and that's how the story progresses. So we have The Postman Always Rings Twice by James McCain, and I love the cover. So an immoral young tramp, a beautiful sullen woman with an inconvenient husband, a problem that has only one grisly solution that only creates other problems that no one can ever solve. So it's like a Roman noir, so instead of a crime noir, a crime novel, noir. So it's kind of like Albert Camus' The Stranger, which is actually a book I really loved. I really enjoyed when I read it a couple years back. And yeah, I read this at the very, very beginning of the year. But I did remember thinking that I liked it because I've tried to read some like crime noir and like stuff like that, and I just couldn't get into it, but I didn't really read that way. And I don't want to like give away too much, but a guy comes into their life, this couple's life, and they kind of skirt and talk around the idea of what to do about her husband. But I liked it, so yeah. We have Summer House with Swimming Pool by Herman Koch. And this book, I've talked about Herman Koch before, totally pulling this out of my butt out of nowhere. Sometimes I read his stuff and I'm like, I read something a character says and I'm like, is this character talking, or is this the author projecting through his character? Which, again, I have no reason for thinking that. But his books, they cannot be put down. I've read The Dinner by him, which was really good. It was popular on here for a while ago, even though one thing that happened to a character that's a person of color really pissed me off, and the person was a kid too. So that really upset me. But it was a good book, and what happened did fit the whole everything going on, so it's not even that I'm mad about that. I was just mad on behalf of that poor character. But I read This Is My Next Book, was my next book by him, and I really liked it. He can write characters so good, and he writes books that are fiction, but you can't put them down. Like, they're thrillers almost, I guess you would say. I was gonna say it's not a mystery, but it, you know, thriller is the right word I'm looking for. So when famous actor Ralph Myers dies Following a medical procedure gone wrong, his doctor, Mark Schlosser, needs to have convincing answers ready. After all, reputation is everything in this business. It all started the previous summer when Mark and his friends spent a week with the Meyers and a few other friends at their extravagant summer home on the Mediterranean. Just as the group settles in for all days of sunshine, a violent incident disrupts the ideal and darker motivations are exposed. As shocking realities unravel, it seems no one can be trusted. Circumstances that surround Ralph's death moments later become disturbingly tied to the summer house, and the vacation that had been once a dream soon develops into a living nightmare. This was so good. Like, I could not put this down. Oh my gosh, it was so good. The characters, the everything, like, it's one of those things where you know you're reading about characters that are kind of scummy, but like, you don't actively hate them. Like, you just need to read more and knows what happens, and you're just so invested in the story. Like, it's not distracting having the characters be awful in the way that they are. It's just, you need to consume more. I also read another book by him too, but I did not like it as much. So that was a bummer, but I'm definitely going to seek out even more of his other books to read because his stuff is just so good. I read Mr. M by him and I didn't like that this year. But this was good. We have The Russian Masters by Anton Chekhov, and other stories. Oh my gosh, yeah, there we go. Russian Master and other stories. I never read Anton Chekhov before. Absolutely loved this. I have a bigger collection of his stories on my shelf that I definitely want to get to now, and I'm way excited to get to now thanks to reading this. Nick Teen, a school teacher, visits his neighbors where there's always laughter, music, and dancing. He falls in love with Masha, a daughter of the house, and marrying her feels that he takes in his hands a happiness which only seemed possible in novels. But as a sensible, practical Masha weaves her net, the point of Nick's smug domestic bliss begins to seem oddly blurred somehow. So the loss of ideals and the poverty of actual experience are the themes here. Very, very Russian in its essence. And there's also The Duel, which is a good story. There was just, I don't know, it's just one of those things that, again, that the Russian classic authors do that you can hardly describe. They put these situations of real life in, slices of life, and they turn it on its head and fill it with existential dread and philosophical questions and stuff like that. And so it's just, it's so good. And I think the only one I didn't like was A Lady with a Dog in the beginning. But, because I think it's a cheating story if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, this was really good. I'm really excited to read the rest of Anton Chekhov's works. So yeah. Oh my gosh, the sun is awful. There we go. Oh my gosh, so we have another great YA lit series. We have The Foxhole Court by Nora Saka. So we have book 1, The Foxhole Court. We have book 2, The Raven King. And we have book 3, The King's Men. Also queer lit. So good. I literally, like, this was also self-published, so the books I'm holding are literally just like printed on like typed paper and like put in like this really like nice but cheap book binding. And I didn't order these, so you can get the first one for free on Kindle, I believe, and I read all of them on Kindle before buying them because they're these beautiful white covers and there was no way I was going to carry them around. The book is about a college where there's a sports team for Exie, which is now the biggest sport in the world, which is now, it's a mixture of lacrosse and something else, you can read how the sport works, but you actually don't need to know that to read the book. So that's good. I told one of my friends who does like YA lit, like, you need to read this, and she's like, I don't want to read about sports, blah, 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 and I'm like, read it. And she started it, and she's hooked. So, it's phenomenal, and the sports team is made up of miscreants, delinquents, stuff like this, because the coach believes in giving them a second chance. But don't let this fool you. So this main guy, you find out very early on that he's like, doesn't have his parents or his mom was tied to some stuff, and his dad was a bad dude, really bad dude, and so he's been lying about his identity and not staying close to people and living on his own. But the one thing he let himself do was play Exy in high school, and so he's recruited by this college, and this guy, Andrew, who I've never feel like I could relate or feel kin with another character, and I've literally only felt that twice now, and it's with Valkyrie from Thor and Andrew in the Foxhole Court. Like, I feel like I feel them, and he's amazing, and he is a very interesting character. I don't want to say any more because I don't want to give stuff away, but he's recruited and they do not take no for an answer, and from him running from his past, you learn more about that stuff. Then he gets tangled. Let me just say that it's a sports Exy. It's a sports YA lit series that and a Yakuza crossover. If you don't know, Yakuza are the big gangs in Japan, and that's all I'm going to say. And I bet when I said the second part, you were like, what? I thought we were talking about college sports. No, it gets dark. It's dark and it's serious and it's dark and everything I love. So read it. It's so good, and it's quite lit. It's so good. And there's people of color. Same with the Six of Crows series. There's a range of people of color, which is awesome. So it really just ticked every box, and it's phenomenal. And I will be rereading it in a year or two for sure because it's just that good. Next, we have a book that actually I don't think is well written, but I enjoyed. So, The Weight of Water by Anita Shreve. I read this for my book club. So, I wonder this: if you take a woman and push her to the edge, how will she behave? The question is posed by Jean, a photographer who in 1995 arrives on Smutty Nose Island, off the coast of Maine, to research a century-old crime. As she immerses herself in the details of the case, an outburst of passion that resulted in the death of 2 women, Jean herself enters precarious emotional territory. The suspicion that her husband is having an affair burgeons into jealousy and distrust, and ultimately propels Jean to the verge of actions she had not known herself capable of, actions with horrific consequences. So she is everything was said, but they're all on a boat, hence water, and water plays a big symbolism as she's traveling to the island with her husband, her husband's brother's girlfriend, and her kid, her husband and her kid. They're traveling to this thing so she can take notes and just kind of look and get a feel and look around the island, maybe try to solve the mystery herself. And as she becomes entangled in this woman's story, it deals with her own emotions and her own feelings and insecurities about things, and like it says, has horrific consequences. So yeah, I would only give this really a 3 stars for the writing, but a 3.5 stars because I enjoyed it. But I think that this is a very popular author. She's written a lot of books. I think that if you are looking for, I don't know, a book club type book where there's things to talk about, actually not really, because it's kind of, again, it's not that clever of writing, but I still think it was good. So check it out. I really don't know what else to say because I don't want to keep saying that because I feel bad, like, oh, it's just mediocre, but I liked it. It's good. Why not? If you pick this book up from a selection and read it, I don't think a random selection, and you like got 1 free book and you just happen to pick it up, I think you'd be pleased with it. So 3 more books. Well, and then the ones I didn't physically have. We have The Dumb House by John Burnside, and this, I said in my wrap-up, whatever month I read it, is a good companion piece for The Angel Maker by Stefan Bruges. This is, as a child, Luke's mother often tells him the story of the Dumb House, an experiment on newborn babies raised in silence designed to test the innateness of language. As he grows up, his interest in language grows, and the delicate balance of life and death leads to amateur dissections on small animals, tiny hearts, revealed still pumping as life trickles away. But as an adult, following the death of his mother, Luke's obsession deepens, resulting in a haunting and bizarre experiment on Luke's own children. So he somehow gets a hold, everything was said, but he somehow gets a hold of twins and does an experiment on them. And this was, experiments and things like this always really mess me up. But they have to be, it has to be done in a good way. And this was just really upsetting. And my friends and I read this for a podcast. This was our first book review. So you can also check that out, link down below. And I really liked this. And like I said, I think it would be a great companion piece to The Angel Maker. And so reading both of these things same concept done in completely different ways with completely different storylines, completely different outcomes, but underlying some of the same themes. And so this will definitely make you feel quite uneasy. I love this cover though, it's so pretty. Yeah. We have The Tin Man by Sarah Whitman. This is a queer book, and this is a guy and a girl married, and he's reflecting on this good mutual friend they had, and who suddenly just like kind of went away and became estranged from them after they got married, which makes sense. It's another one of those things where it's like a queer threesome, as I like to call it, where there's mutual feelings going on. And the thing that always, the one thing that upsets me about those kind of storylines though, is that I'm not saying all three people can't feel equally the same about each other, but you get the sense that that's not the case. And I don't like it because I don't feel like it's fair on the women if it's the case where the two guys are actually more in love with each other. And I don't think it's fair on one of the guys if the guy and the girl are more in love with each other. But this felt very heartfelt and equal in that sense, where it just felt like, you know, the third half was like missing, or the third person just was missing, like out of both the hearts. But I do feel like it hit the guy harder. So I'm like, I don't know, but he reflects and he comes across a diary or something where he gets to find out more about his friend and what happened after he left them and things like this, and it's very heartbreaking and very sad. And I was like, when I finished it, I was like, wasn't looking forward to reading more sad queer lit. No thank you. But it was very, very good, so I do have to recommend it and say it's a favorite. And then, oh my gosh, so at the beginning of the year, I read East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is now one of my top 5 or 10 favorite books of all time. Absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait to read Grapes of Wrath by him. So, the Salinas Valley in Northern California. I'm from and live in Northern California. That is my home. So all these cities he was listing, and John Steinbeck's from there, all the cities he was listing, I don't normally read a book and care that much if it's set in like, or I used to not care if it was set like, oh, this book's set in California, you have to read it. Like, no, but I really loved and enjoyed this. Like, California has changed so much, you know, the wineries, the other things like that you see as you pass through things and through areas changed so much, and it really just made me excited to learn about where I'm from and the way it was then, because you hear stories, you know, from my parents, from my grandparents, but this is essentially like a family drama, I guess, but set, I don't even know what year it's supposed to be set in off the top of my head, I can't remember, but in the Salinas Valley in Northern California, Monterey Bay. So many people here go to Monterey for vacations and stuff. He talks about San Jose and Los Gatos and other cities that are in Northern California. And like, I don't even really know how to describe it. So this guy, he marries a lady, they have twins, but the woman is a bit awful, and it's about his time and his journey and him getting his farms and his land together and building up everything from nothing. And then the twins grow up, and the twins have a kind of Cain and Abel vibe, but almost, is that a necessity? Are they inheriting the evilness of evil character of the mother, the mother's journey, what the mother does and goes on to, and it's tense. And I can honestly say it just feels like reading a Bible story. In East of Eden, there's biblical themes, there's biblical comparisons, there's from the biblical stories like Cain and Abel and stuff like that, it felt like reading a Bible story, which if you've grown up in the church, you kind of, the vibe that you're getting is one of almost nostalgia and tense. It's familiar, but it's tense and it's uncomfortable. But it's so good because it's so real, because it's people, and it's people at their best and it's people at their worst, but mainly people at their worst. And I can't recommend it enough. And I mean, everything I said about what it's about in terms of specific storylines, that's what it's about. But it's 590 something pages of just pure goodness and pure classic piece of literature. I love this edition too of the book. So good. I have to read another John Steinbeck this year because this blew me away so much. So those are all the physical books. Now, let me real quick to see on my list. Anything else? Oh, yes. So, 2 Mysteries by Anthony Horowitz. He wrote The Magpie Murders, which I swear I bought, but I cannot for the life of me find it on my shelf. So, whatever. So, we have The Magpie Murders, and then we have The Word is Murder. So, The Magpie Murders, I'm like, what do I say without giving stuff away? Well, okay, The Word is Murder is, they're both detective stories. They're not connected. I don't know if they're going to continue in a series. I don't think so, which is good. I prefer standalone. But they are 2 mysteries where you just, I was really impressed and blown away. Like, his writing, I listened to both stories, and I listened to them very, very quickly. So let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Editor Susan Ryland is given the manuscript of Alan Conway's latest novel. She has no reason to think it will be much different from his others. After working with the best-selling crime author for years, she's familiar with his detective, Atticus Punt, who solves mysteries disturbing sleepy English villages, a homage to the classics. But his latest novel has Atticus Punt investigating a murder at Pye Hall, a local manor house. Yes, there are dead bodies, but the more Susan reads, the more she's convinced that there's another story hidden within the story that the dead author left behind. And so you're listening to it, and she's reading his story, and then it goes back to her time because stuff happens. And then The Word is Murder, oh my god, like, The Word is Murder, the mystery is so great. And what's funny is it kind of deals with the self-insert character of Anthony Horowitz, which I was like, at first I was like, ugh, I don't want something, you know, it's self-insert Sherlock Holmes type thing, like, talk about annoying, but it's not. He does a really good job of self-inserting without being annoying and an obnoxious prick. And the mystery itself, I was like really impressed by the ending and the reveal and, you know, the tragedy of it all. Anthony Horowitz is amazing, and I read his new book too quickly though, so I'm probably not gonna get a new one for like 2 years, which is a bummer, but just so good. Read his stuff, and yeah. And then also The Child Finder by Renee Denfield, about a young woman who, when she was younger, she had trauma happen to her. She doesn't necessarily know what it was. And so since then, she's worked to become a private eye in finding missing children. She's very good at it. She can get into their heads, but not in a dumb Sherlockian way. Again, Sherlockian way. I hate that trope and use of detectives, of just kind of knowing things and just like automatically knowing things. Like, no. She's really good. The story itself, oh my god, I cried so hard. I cried so hard. It's one of those things where I've said this in my review of it, but I cry to 2 shows a lot. That's it. Naruto. I mean, I cried individual shows that I see. Like, I almost cried a lot at The Haunting of Hill House, which I binge watch. I didn't, no tears fell, but I wanted to multiple times. Naruto, which is an anime I've watched for 10 plus years, so you get really attached to the characters, and then when things happen, it's done so well. And then Criminal Minds, which you're like, why do you cry Criminal Minds? Well, I weep for the cycle of abuse and awfulness that humanity puts itself through, and when it's expressed through an individual, and you're thinking about how their life could have been maybe different. Some people are just born that way, but my heart just like broke for so many people in The Child Finder, and I can't help it. I cry and I weep over that, and it's so good. But wow, like, so I definitely am gonna keep an eye on this author, and I think this is book 1 in the series, so I'm not one for following the same detective over and over again. I don't like it. I like my stories self-contained, but I might give the second one a try when it comes out, whenever that is. But yeah, so that was really good, and definitely one of my faves. And yeah, that is all, you guys. Oh my gosh, we are like a bajillion minutes later, but I had to. I talked about 5 books that I didn't like in my last video, and that was 12 minutes, and so I just knew this is gonna be a long one. I'm gonna have to clip together 2 huge chunks of video, but I don't care. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you tomorrow for another video. It's gonna be in my 2018 summary wrap up of just 2018 stuff in general. And then heading into the new year, I'm gonna have my goals for 2019 and I'm gonna have my bookshelf tour. So get ready for that. I'm so excited to post it and share it with you guys. Yeah, I hope you guys have had a great year. Let me know if you've read these books and what you think of them. My computer's dying, so I need to hurry up. As always, it's been great. I will see you guys next time.